Listen up. This is serious. There's something happening in your life right now that you're not seeing clearly. Someone, maybe a friend, a coworker, a partner, is doing something that is slowly destroying you. And the worst part, you might not even recognize it. You probably think you'd see it coming, right? That you'd know if someone was trying to tear you down. But that's the problem. It never starts with a slap in the face. It starts with something small, something subtle, something you dismiss. But I need you to wake up. Because if you don't, it's going to cost you everything, your confidence, your happiness, and maybe even your
Hmm.
future. So let's cut through the noise. Here are 10 warning signs that someone is out to destroy you. If even one of these sounds familiar, you need to take action
Mm.
now. They do it in a way that feels almost harmless at first, maybe even playful. A little jab here, a small correction there, but over time, it adds up. At first, they question your decisions in a way that seems helpful. They say things like, "Are you sure that's the right move?" Or, "You don't know if that's the best idea." You brush it off because it sounds like they care. But if you step back and look at the pattern, you'll see it's always the same. It's never encouragement, it's never support, it's always doubt. And that doubt, it starts seeping into your mind. You begin second guessing yourself. You hesitate before making decisions. You replay their words over and over, wondering if they see something you don't. That's exactly what they want. Because someone who constantly undermines you isn't just being cautious or giving a friendly advice. No, they're planting seeds of insecurity in your mind, hoping they take root. They want you to start questioning yourself so that eventually you rely on them for validation, for approval, for permission. That's how they take control. But here's what's even more dangerous: it doesn't always sound like negativity. Sometimes it's disguised as concern. "I just don't want you to get hurt. I'm only saying this because I care. I wouldn't want you to waste your time." That's the trap. Because when someone frames their doubt as care, it's harder to see it for what it really is: control. And it doesn't stop with just questioning your decisions. They'll undermine your confidence in ways so small you barely notice.
Hmm.
Maybe you get excited about a new job opportunity and they immediately point out all the things that could go wrong. Maybe you tell them about a goal you're working toward and they laugh like it's unrealistic. Or maybe they roll their eyes when you express excitement about something you love. These moments add up, they chip away at you. Over time, you start to shrink yourself. You stop sharing your wins. You hesitate before speaking up. You lose the fire you once had because you've been trained to believe that maybe, just maybe, you aren't as capable as you thought. And here's the worst part: when you finally confront them, they turn it around on you. "You're being too sensitive. You're overreacting. I was just joking." Suddenly, you're the problem. Now, not only are you questioning your decisions, but you're also questioning your own feelings. They've managed to make you doubt your own reality. That is psychological warfare. And if you don't see it for what it is, it will destroy you. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize: their doubt isn't about you, it's about them. People who constantly undermine others do it because they are insecure. They can't stand to see you rise because it reminds them of their own shortcomings. Your ambition makes them uncomfortable. Your
Yeah.
confidence threatens them. Your growth highlights the fact that they are stuck. And instead of doing the hard work of improving their own life, they try to drag you down to their level. Because if you start doubting yourself, if you start playing small, they don't have to feel so bad about their own failures. So, what do? First, recognize the pattern. Pay attention to how you feel after being around them. So, do you feel empowered and supported, or do you feel drained and insecure? If it's the latter, that's your first red flag. Second, stop seeking their validation. You don't need their approval. You don't need them to believe in you. You don't need them to see your vision. The only belief that matters is yours. And finally, distance yourself. I don't care if it's a friend, a coworker, or even a family member. If someone is constantly making you doubt yourself, they are not on your side. They don't deserve a front row seat in your life. You have one shot at this life. You don't have time to waste questioning yourself because of someone else's insecurities. So decide right now that you're done playing small. Decide that you will no longer let anyone make you doubt your worth. And then go prove them wrong. You owe no one an explanation for protecting your energy. But some people will make you feel like you do. They'll push back when you start setting limits. They'll act hurt, surprised, or even angry. because the moment you take control of your life, they lose control over you. It starts subtle. You say no to something you don't have time for, and suddenly they make you feel selfish. You express a need for space and they twist it into rejection. You refuse to be available at their convenience, and they make you feel guilty for not prioritizing them. They don't care about your reasons. They only care that you're no longer bending to their will. They will call you difficult, unreasonable, unfair, because they've benefited from your lack of boundaries for too long. The minute you stop allowing them unlimited access, they act like you've changed, like you're the problem, like you're hurting them by protecting yourself. And if you've been conditioned to please others, to keep the peace, or to avoid conflict, their reaction will shake you. You'll wonder if you're being too harsh. You'll question whether you should just give in. You'll feel the weight of their disappointment like a burden on your back. That's the trap.
They want you to feel bad for doing what's right for you.
They want you to second guess yourself so they can continue crossing the lines. You're finally bitter because the moment you refuse to be manipulated, they lose their power. And people who rely on your guilt to control you, they don't love you. They love what you do for them. They don't respect your needs. They respect how easy it is to get what they want from you. And when that stops, their true colors show. They'll try everything. They'll remind you of how much they've done for you. They'll bring up past favors like currency, as if kindness was ever supposed to be transactional. They'll guilt trip you with words like "after everything I've done," or "a very guess I just don't matter to you." They'll make it seem like you're abandoning them, like you're betraying the relationship, like you should owe them more of yourself, more of your time, more of your energy. But here's the truth they don't want you to see. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries even if they don't like them. They might be disappointed. They might not understand right away, but they will never shame you, punish you, or manipulate you into changing your mind. Because real love, real friendship, real support, it's not built on guilt. It's built on respect. So when someone tries to make you feel like setting limits is an attack on them, recognize it for what it is, a tactic. They are not hurt because you're being unfair. They are upset because they are losing their grip on you. And the worst ones, they don't stop at guilt. They'll use fear. They'll try to convince you that if you hold firm, you'll be alone, that no one else will tolerate your boundaries, that you need them, that your standards are too high, that you're pushing people away. They want you to believe that keeping them around, even at the cost of your own well-being, is better than standing alone. But listen to me. Being alone is always better than being controlled, because once you let guilt dictate your choices, once you allow manipulation to guide your decisions, you are no longer living for yourself. You are living for someone else's comfort at the expense of your own. And what happens then? You become exhausted, resentful, empty. You give and give until there's nothing left of you. And do they notice? Do they appreciate it? Do they ever say, "You know what? You've done enough. I don't want to take advantage of you anymore"?
No, they just take more.
Because they've learned that they can. That stops today. You don't have to explain why you need space. You don't have to justify why something no longer serves you. You don't have to apologize for putting yourself first. If someone truly values you, they won't punish you for protecting yourself. They won't make you feel bad for taking care of your own needs. They won't turn your boundaries into a personal attack.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, they were never in your corner to begin with. When individuals reveal their resentment toward your limits, they rarely do it in the open. Instead, they take a different approach, one that's quieter, more insidious. They don't argue. They don't confront you outright. They work behind the scenes where you can't immediately see the damage they're causing. At first, nothing seems off. Conversations feel normal. They smile when they see you, but then things start changing. People around you act differently. The energy shifts. Someone who once supported you pulls away. Another person hesitates before speaking to you. You start hearing whispers of things you never said, attitudes you never expressed, conflicts you never created. And it all leads back to one source. Someone close to you is playing both sides, smiling to your face while poisoning your reputation behind your back. And they're smart about it. They don't spread outright lies. That would be too obvious. Instead, they twist the truth just enough to make others wonder. They drop small hints, plant subtle doubts, make side comments designed to turn people's perception against you without ever making it look like an attack. I don't know, something feels different about them lately. I just worry they're becoming difficult to be around. I'm not saying they did anything wrong, but that's how it starts. A sentence here, a remark there, no accusations, just enough to create uncertainty in others' minds. And once that doubt takes hold, it spreads like wildfire. People begin questioning things they never doubted before. The way you speak, the way you act, whether your intentions are as pure as they seemed. Suddenly, you're defending yourself against things you never did, fighting battles you never started, trying to fix relationships you didn't break. And all the while, the person responsible stays in the background, watching the chaos unfold. They never get their hands dirty. They let others do the damage for them. That's the brilliance of their strategy. By the time you realize what's happening, the harm is already done. The worst part. If you confront them, they'll deny everything. They'll act confused, hurt even. They'll flip the script so fast you'll question your own instincts. Why would I say that? You're imagining things?
I would never do anything to hurt you.
But look at the pattern. Look at the sudden shift in how others treat you. Look at the way conversations change when you enter the room. Look at the tension where there used to be ease. That doesn't happen by accident. That's the work of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Because this isn't about disagreement. It's not about misunderstanding. It's about control. Someone like this thrives on influence. They can't stand when they no longer have unrestricted access to you, so they do the next best thing. They make sure no one else does either. They don't just want to hurt you. They want to isolate you. They want to ensure that no matter where you turn, doubt follows, that no matter what you say, people hesitate before believing you, that no matter how strong you once felt, you begin wondering if you're the problem. And that's where they win. Because once they get inside your head, once they convince you that you're the one causing the tension, you start retreating. You shrink yourself. You hesitate before speaking. You begin tiptoeing through your own life, trying not to make things worse, when in reality, you never made things bad in the first place. That's how they break you down. Not through obvious cruelty, not through direct attacks, but through small, precise cuts that make you bleed before you even realize you've been wounded. But here's what they don't anticipate. The moment you recognize the pattern, they lose their power. Because the only way their tactics work is if you don't see what's happening. The moment you stop playing along, the moment you stop questioning yourself, the moment you start calling it out for what it is, everything shifts because there's one thing someone like this can't survive: exposure. The second they're seen for what they really are, their influence crumbles, their ability to manipulate fades, and they're left with nothing but their own bitterness, their own insecurity, their own fear of being irrelevant, without the ability to control how others see you.
And
That's the beginning of their downfall. Once the mask slips and their schemes come to light, desperation sets in. They can no longer operate from the shadows, whispering half-truths into unsuspecting ears, twisting perception with carefully placed insinuations. Their cover is blown, but that doesn't mean they stop. It means they escalate. Suddenly, they're everywhere, louder, more persistent, more reckless. The quiet manipulation transforms into overt sabotage. Now they aren't just planting doubts, they're rewriting reality itself. Conversations you never had, words you never spoke, actions you never took, none of it matters. They fabricate, they embellish, they weaponize the past, distorting history to fit their narrative, and the way they deliver it, convincing. Because deception is their craft, and by the time they reach this stage, they're masters of it. Every word drips with certainty. Every expression conveys sincerity. They don't just tell lies, they embody them. And when confronted, they double down, refusing to waver because hesitation would crack the illusion. They thrive on chaos. The more confusion they create, the harder it is for people to separate fact from fiction. Every interaction is turned into ammunition, every moment an opportunity to further their agenda. And the more they push, the more people start to wonder, could there be some truth to what they're saying? Because that's the real danger. Not just the falsehoods they spread, but the doubt they inject into others. Lies don't need to be believed outright to be effective. They just need to make people hesitate. That hesitation is enough to corrode trust, enough to fracture relationships, enough to turn allies into bystanders unsure of which side to take. That hesitation is a crack in the foundation, and they hammer away at it relentlessly. They know that once doubt creeps in, it spreads. It lingers. It alters the way people interpret everything that follows. A joke becomes an insult. Silence becomes hostility. Innocence becomes guilt. This is where they operate best, when everything is unstable, when reality is blurred, when confusion reigns. Because when people are unsure, they are controllable. And control is what they crave above all else. But here's what they don't anticipate. The more aggressive they become, the more obvious they make themselves. Their need to be right, to win, to completely rewrite the truth. It makes them reckless. The same people they once manipulated start noticing the inconsistencies. They start questioning the logic. They start seeing the desperation behind the performance, because that's what it is, a performance. Every word, every gesture, every carefully constructed piece of their story is designed to maintain their grip. But no performance lasts forever. Eventually, the cracks show. The contradictions pile up. The stories don't align. And once people see through the act, the entire thing collapses, because the truth, it always surfaces. Maybe not immediately, maybe not as quickly as it should. But in the end, deception consumes itself. Lies require maintenance. They require constant reinforcement. They require more and more fabrication to sustain the illusion. And no one, not even the most skilled manipulator, can keep up forever. They burn themselves out. The effort required to uphold the falsehood becomes too much. The people they once controlled slip through their fingers. The narrative they worked so hard to construct crumbles under its own weight. And the person they feared losing the most? The one who saw them for what they were, they walk away. Not in anger, not in vengeance, but in something far worse for someone like this: indifference. Because nothing destroys a manipulator faster than realizing they no longer matter. When their grip loosens and control slips through their fingers, panic sets in. They've spent so long weaving their version of events, bending perception, ensuring every detail serves their agenda. But now the walls close in, the very foundation they stood on crumbles, and with it, their influence vanishes. This is when their behavior shifts from manipulation to outright destruction.
No longer content with subtle distortions, they resort to more aggressive tactics. They become reckless, unpredictable.
Their words sharpen, their actions grow desperate. Every attempt to regain dominance feels more erratic, more forced. They lash out, hoping something, anything, will stick. They rely on the past, digging through old wounds, searching for anything that can be repurposed as a weapon. Conversations long forgotten are suddenly twisted into accusations. Minor disagreements resurface, reframed as evidence of deep-rooted betrayal. They fabricate narratives so outrageous, so emotionally charged, that people react before they think. That's the goal, not to be believed outright, but to provoke enough uncertainty that chaos takes hold. They thrive on reaction. Indifference is their greatest weakness. If they can no longer control you through persuasion, they'll settle for disruption. They push buttons they know will trigger responses. They test boundaries, daring you to engage, hoping to draw you back into their world. The more you react, the more fuel they have. They rewrite history, twisting moments that once meant nothing into pivotal betrayals. It's no longer about facts, it's about perception. They don't need to prove their version is true. They just need to make it feel true to enough people. Emotion overrides logic. Outrage spreads faster than reason, and they count on that. But what they don't understand is that destruction isn't the same as control. The more they push, the more obvious they become. People see the inconsistencies. They notice the contradictions. They recognize the desperation behind every attempt to regain lost ground. At first, there's confusion, then suspicion, then clarity. The web they spent so much time spinning collapses under its own weight. Those who once listened with sympathy begin to step back. Doubt shifts in the opposite direction. Eyes that once looked at you with uncertainty now turn toward them. And when that happens, they spiral. The loss of control is unbearable. The realization that their tactics no longer work, that their words no longer hold power, is something they cannot accept. So they escalate. They become louder, more aggressive, more reckless. But the more they scream, the less people listen. Because once someone sees through them, they can't unsee it. The spell is broken, the illusion shattered, and the one thing they relied on above all else, influence, is gone. With influence slipping beyond reach, their desperation takes a darker turn. They no longer attempt to persuade, convince, or mislead. That phase is over. What remains is something raw, unfiltered, unrestrained. When whispers and distortions fail, destruction becomes the only option left. They shift tactics, abandoning subtlety altogether. Now, it's about obliterating everything in their path. If they can't control the narrative, they'll dismantle it. If they can't bend perceptions, they'll break them. Every word, every action, every calculated move is designed to cause as much harm as possible. The goal isn't victory anymore, it's ruin. They create chaos, throwing accusations so extreme, so absurd that people hesitate before dismissing them outright. Shock is their weapon. The sheer audacity of their claims forces others to pause, if only for a moment. And that moment, that's all they need. In hesitation, doubt creeps in, and in doubt, they find another opportunity to inflict damage. They target what matters most: relationships, reputation, stability. They aim where it hurts, where wounds take the longest to heal. No low is too low, no line too sacred. They twist kindness into weakness, honesty into naivety, loyalty into foolishness. Anything to paint themselves as the victim and everyone else as the aggressor. They provoke, they antagonize, they bait. Their words are laced with venom, carefully crafted to elicit reactions. They don't need logic. They need emotion, anger, frustration, sadness. Any response feeds their fire, and if one attempt fails, they double down again and again until something lands, until someone reacts, until they find a crack to exploit. When confrontation doesn't work, they change direction. And if rage won't get the reaction they seek, pity might. Suddenly, they're the wounded party, the one wronged, the one abandoned, misunderstood, mistreated. They weave a new story, one where they are fragile, betrayed, left behind. A performance so convincing, so emotionally charged that even those who saw through them begin second guessing. But desperation has a cost. The more erratic their behavior, the more people notice. The louder they become, the clearer their intentions. Patterns emerge. The same accusations, the same manipulations, the same games, repeated over and over. And people start connecting the dots. Slowly, their audience shrinks, support fades, defenders grow silent. Their tactics, once so effective, now expose them instead. What once inspired sympathy now repels. What once drew people in now pushes them away. And that's something they never prepared for, because their entire existence relies on perception, on how others see them, believe them, respond to them. Without that, they are powerless, and nothing terrifies them more than irrelevance. With their power over others slipping, they become unpredictable. The old tricks no longer work, yet they refuse to accept defeat. Losing influence feels like suffocation, an unbearable reality they will do anything to escape. So they scramble for new ways to regain their footing, pushing boundaries even further. Their words grow sharper, their actions more erratic. Every encounter turns into an opportunity to regain lost control. If rational arguments won't sway opinions, they'll resort to spectacle. Drama becomes their last resort. The louder they shout, the more chaotic they become, hoping the sheer force of their presence alone will force others to submit. That the desperation is obvious now. The intensity isn't strength, it's fear. They know the end is near, and that knowledge consumes them. Panic fuels their behavior, driving them toward decisions even they wouldn't have made before. Where once they thrived on calculated moves, they now act impulsively, lashing out in all directions. They search for new targets, new angles, new ways to manipulate. If one approach fails, they immediately pivot. They throw accusations wildly, waiting to see what sticks. Their stories change, their explanations shift. Nothing is consistent except for their insistence that they are always right. As they spiral, their words become contradictory. Yesterday's version of events conflicts with today's. One moment, they demand attention. The next, they claim they want nothing to do with anyone. They create problems, then insist they are the victim of those very same issues. And when confronted, they deny, deflect, distract. They exaggerate every perceived slight, making minor issues appear catastrophic. Any criticism becomes an attack. Any disagreement is framed as betrayal. They paint themselves as martyrs, suffering unjustly, surrounded by those who don't understand them. It's not enough to gain sympathy. They need outrage. They need people to rally behind them, to fight battles they created. But with each lie, with each dramatic display, they push people further away. The exhaustion they once inflicted on others now turns against them. Their unpredictability makes even their closest allies uneasy. The energy required to maintain their deception drains them. And as frustration builds, those around them finally reach their limit. When people begin to walk away, they refuse to accept responsibility. Instead of reflecting, they double down. They blame others for the mess they created. They rewrite history once more, attempting to erase their role in the destruction. If they can't change reality, they'll create a new one, hoping enough people believe it. But illusions require effort, and the weight of their own actions becomes too heavy to bear. They've spent so much time trying to control everyone else that they've lost control of themselves. And once that realization sets in, once they see that the world continues without them, the collapse is inevitable. Every step forward tightens the grip of their unraveling mind. The tactics they once wielded so effectively now backfire, leaving behind only frustration. They try to maintain the illusion, but cracks widen. The more they push, the more resistance they meet. Those once listened now question. Those who once defended now hesitate. Control the thing they valued most is slipping beyond reach, and that realization sends them into a frenzy. Their desperation becomes their downfall. They lash out wildly, burning bridges without thought, leaving destruction in their wake. Every attempt to regain lost ground only isolates them further. They can feel the shift, the growing distance, the dwindling attention, the quiet rejection. And it terrifies them. They attempt new angles, twisting narratives and directions that even they struggle to keep straight. Yesterday's version of events contradicts today's. Conversations they once relied on for support now work against them. The tangled web they wove is collapsing under its own weight. They scramble to hold it together, but every frantic attempt only exposes more inconsistencies. They weaponize emotions, turning kindness into guilt, compassion into obligation. If they can't force compliance, they'll manipulate through shame. They cast themselves as the wounded party, the misunderstood soul wronged by the world. Their suffering, exaggerated or entirely fabricated, becomes their latest tool. But this time, fewer people buy into it. The exhaustion they inflicted on others has numbed their audience. What once evoked sympathy now elicits indifference. That indifference is unbearable. They feed on reaction, thrive on engagement. Without it, they feel invisible, irrelevant. And irrelevance is their greatest fear. They provoke, push test boundaries, anything to elicit some form of response. If kindness won't pull people back in, then hostility might. They cycle between extremes, shifting from sorrowful pleas to venomous attacks, hoping something, anything, will reignite the attention they so desperately crave. But people have seen too much. The mask has slipped too often. The charm they once wielded so effectively now feels hollow, full. Their words, once persuasive, now ring false. Patterns too glaring to ignore have emerged, and even those who were once blind to their games can no longer deny what's in front of them. As reality sets in, anger takes hold. If they can't win, they'll make sure no one else does either. They sabotage, disrupt, seek revenge in ways both small and devastating. Every perceived slight becomes justification for retaliation. They do not simply let go. They destroy. They plant doubt, spread misinformation, seek to poison connections. Anything to leave a mark to ensure their absence is felt. But the damage they inflict now lacks its former impact. The shock has worn off. The audience has moved on. The cycle has become predictable. And in that predictability, they lose the one thing they always depended on: power over others. The unraveling accelerates as they grasp at anything that might reverse their collapse, but every move reveals desperation. Every ploy exposes weakness. The tactics that once ensured influence now work against them. People recognize the cycle. The false promises, the calculated displays of distress, the carefully orchestrated outrage, none of it lands the way it used to. Instead of drawing others in, it pushes them away. Isolation looms, and they can feel it. That terrifying silence where control once existed grows louder with each passing day. They refuse to accept it. Denial becomes their last weapon. If they pretend nothing has changed, maybe they can convince others to believe it too. But reality doesn't bend to their will. The people they once held sway over no longer react the way they used to. Conversations that would have once erupted into chaos now end with indifference. Manipulations that once demanded attention now barely earn a glance. The frustration becomes unbearable. They double down, pushing harder, lashing out more frequently. They manufacture new crises, each more outrageous than the last, hoping to force engagement. If sympathy won't bring people back, maybe conflict will. But there's a problem. They've played every card. The same accusations, the same tactics, the same cycles. The exhaustion they created in others now consumes them instead. Panic fuels reckless decisions. They try to regain what's slipping away by any means necessary. Lies become bolder, threats more explicit, guilt trips heavier. But none of it restores what's already lost. The desperation is transparent now, the chaos no longer shocking, just sad. They lash out at shadows, convinced that if they can just find anyone to blame, they can justify the mess they created. But the world isn't listening. The realization dawns slowly. At first, they refuse to believe it. Then, as the silence stretches, as the reactions become fewer and fewer, they are forced to confront the truth. The control they thought they had was never real. The power they built was an illusion, and illusions only last as long as people believe in them.